We have a wonderful discussion planned for you this evening with a couple very special guests. But before we get started, I want to remind you all, if you're able, to make a donation to support the museum and this series. I know I say this every time we're together in this space, but each donation, no matter how small, has such a big impact for us. The museum has to raise every dollar it takes to operate, and we hope you enjoy and appreciate what we do enough to support us. And as always, your donation in increments of $10 earns you a raffle entry for a pair of Darn Tough socks. I will draw those two winners tomorrow. And if you've already purchased your Red Bench Seasons Pass, your entry or entries are already included. And thank you for supporting this series so generously. A massive thank you goes out to our Red Bench series sponsors. Silver sponsor, Scholler Textile. Bronze sponsors, AJ Ski and Sports, RK Miles, Sisler Builders, and our media sponsor, Vermont Ski and Ride. Tonight, we are so lucky to be joined by Vasu Sojitra and David Goodman. We are going to answer some audience questions towards the end, so please type those into the Q&A box that you see at the bottom of your screen. Our moderator tonight is David Goodman. David is the author of Best Backcountry Skiing in the Northeast, host of the Vermont Conversation on WDEV and Vermont Digger, and no stranger to the Vermont Ski and Snowboard Museum. An avid supporter, David has also sat on the Red Bench, both literally and virtually, many times. So David, I now hand this over to you to give Vasu the introduction he deserves.
Thank you, Abby, and welcome everybody out there in virtual ski and snowboard land. You are in for a treat. Our guest, Vasu, is really one of the real trailblazers in the world of skiing, in the world of social and racial justice, and he's got a great story, and I'll give you the Vasu's official bio. In 2014, Vasu Sojitra climbed Wyoming's Grand Teton on one leg and without a prosthetic leg while using crutches. He went on to complete the first disabled ski descent of Mount Moran, which is very close to the Grand Teton at 12,600 feet. And then in 2021, Vasu teamed up with Pete McAfee, another amputee, and skied the first disabled descent of Denali. Their feat was featured in the 2021 Warren Miller film, Winter Starts Now. And then he went on to climb Ecuador's Cotopaxi, a volcano over 19,000 feet, and did it with the Range of Motion Project, which raises awareness for disability rights and prosthetic care. And Vasu is also a co-founder of the Inclusive Outdoors Project, which promotes outdoor sports and holds clinics by and for people with disabilities, people of color, and members of the LGBTQ and other communities that are often shut out of participation. He is one of just 2 adaptive athletes to represent the North Face, and he's appeared with other underrepresented outdoor athletes in the independent film, The Approach. And that brings us to where we are now. So, hey Vasu, welcome back to Vermont.
Yeah, virtually, right? I know I was just there this past weekend, so
yes,
great to be there again.
So, introduce The Approach, and we're going to see a little clip from 2 approaches. So, explain what it's about.
Yeah, so The Approach is about more so the people that tend to be left out a little bit, and also how we have created our own space around the ski community, whether it's women of color, other women, as well as adaptive riders as well. And we're just trying to showcase how we lift each other up and share that joy together, and just be as supportive as possible when we're out there trying to, we like to call it leveling up, but just increasing our ability on the hill, on the slopes, whether it be in the park or in Alaska or skiing spines or anything like that. So that's the idea, is just to create a very supportive community around skiing and showcasing that in a more, a film that's been more circulated in the mainstream of the ski world. So trying to get more eyes on that. So that's kind of the idea behind it.
All right, so I'm going to go to a screen share here. We're going to jump around a little bit. there are now two approaches. The new Approach 2 just came out, and Vasu, you've been touring with it, and you were at Outdoor Gear Exchange just last weekend with the premiere of it. So we're going to start with Approach 1, which came out last year. Going to show the opener, which isn't just about Vasu. It's about, as Vasu said, you'll meet several people here. Then we're going to jump to the Vasu section. Then we're going to jump to the section in the new movie. So fasten your seatbelt. First, I'm going to screen share here. Okay, first we're going to last year's Approach. And as you can see, you can go to the North Face hosts these. Okay. Can everybody hear?
And then drop into this and ride that shadow line down. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Looking back and seeing, our skin track that all of us took turns putting in, or the boot pack, or then looking up the lines all down the mountain. It's like a perfect visual expression of each individual person's contribution, and then collectively it's like, this is what we've all done together.
When we started out, I never believed it. I was so hopeless when it hit, I couldn't keep up with you. When we started out, I never believed it. I was so hopeless when it hit, I couldn't keep up with you. Then we were trying aimlessly to always achieve it. Not working out. But when we started out, I never could conceive it. But I'll tough up myself now, kick down the heartache, 'cause when we started, be wicked and bold now. Tough up yourself now. Don't be going off the rails now, kick down the heartache, 'cause when we started, we are wicked young fools who behave now, back in the arms of somebody who saved us. We are wicked young fools who behave now, back in the arms of somebody who saved us. We are wicked young fools who behave now, back in the arms of somebody who saved us. We are wicked and bold, we are wicked and bold, we are wicked and bold, we are wicked and
bold. They were basically micromanaging the thinking for a project design. It's only 2 days, so it will be in a workshop-like environment online.
As someone trying to find their identity and carve out a space for themselves, the feeling like I had to be like someone I'm very much not, and that just wasn't my lived experience. And so is there a place for me?
I can't imagine trying to be out in the backcountry, plus having school to navigate. That takes a lot of focus.
I'm technically in grad school to get my master's of environmental management.
If I had Emily making all of my life decisions, I would be in a really good place.
Yeah, I do have a good point.
I've been in Jackson in some form or another for the last 17 to 18 years. Kind of have a non-traditional story. My grandparents raised me from about when I was 13, and they have a home here.
I mean, like, I just don't really have very many Black women that I look up to in like snow sports, and it's so cool to see Emily do that and fill that role for me as I'm like working alongside her.
Your turns look great. The snow was a missing.
Feel me, feel the love, soy lo que conoces, te estoy calling, no me coges, yo llego y tú corres, ¿a dónde lo dejaste? Para yo ir por él, la puerta que cerraste, no la puedo ver, ya, déjalo que se vaya, si no hay agua pa' que la toalla me quería, pero ahora no doy la talla, papi, para, no te pases de la raya, no, yo ya no quiero verle a la cara.
My approach to snowboarding has been just about getting to play and revisit what it means to be a kid, because I don't think I personally in my story and journey haven't had the opportunity to fully get to be a kid. And I know that that is a limitation that's placed on a lot of kids who look like me.
I don't want to go last next time. I definitely, moving forward, want to use whatever voice I have to advocate for more people to be in these spaces, because they're incredibly empowering, can really show you what you can bring to the table.
Sabes que lo nuestro nos mata como veneno. Es que nos queremos, pero papi andamos en duelo de celos. Mi tiro de esquina te rompe el ego. Me tiro, te tiras o te relevo. Feel me, feel the love. Soy lo que conoces.
I want to ride that.
No me coges. Yo llego y tú corres. ¿Dónde lo dejaste? Para yo ir por él. La puerta que cerraste. No la puedo ver. Ya, déjalo que se vaya. Si no hay agua pa' que la toalla me quería, pero ahora no doy la talla. Papi, para, no te pases de la raya. No, yo ya no quiero verle a la cara. No me engaña nada. Me quería, pero no doy la talla.
I'm snacking, putting socks away, my pants that I should probably put on. You know, it's gone wild. Roger. Definitely rocking out on my jet ski right now. Oh my god.
Oh damn, man, that's some fucking clever shit there. Oh, good thing you flexi.
We are in Girdwood, Alaska, waiting for a weather window to hopefully go heli skiing.
I think it's because I like wiggle, you know?
Yeah, we know you're one.
So I broke my back only like 5 years ago, started skiing the year after that. I picked it up quickly. That is helped by just my level of like muscular function that I have after my injury. And part of that is just I've had a lot of flexibility of being able to hit the snow a lot. I mean, I get face shots carving corn, so sitting 2 feet off the ground and having my outriggers, which also spray up their own. Yeah, there's a lot of snow in my face. This idea that there are all these different worlds and spheres that are separate from one another, I think can be really harmful. You know, like we are one community, and especially like the disabled community is not just this abstract sphere. It's anybody could become part of our community tomorrow. Before my injury, I was a very average rock climber, very average, most athletic pursuits. being at the front of the bell curve rather than the center of the bell curve, to me, doesn't mean that I'm like exceptional. It just means that there aren't enough disabled athletes getting out there doing the things that they should be doing.
It's handheld cameras. Just see so far. No, we're looking for. Okay, I mean, for native lands out, Yellowstone is like 5 million tribes. That's not true. I don't go ski all the time. I mostly answer emails. Pretty much the mountains don't really care. Usually the people around you do, and that kind of dissolved as I started skiing a little bit more. For me, skiing has become an equalizer.
So the first time you started, you had one ski and like 2 poles.
I got into skiing when I was 10 years old. A rental ski and a boot, and then I actually just used my like forearm crutches that have little rubber tips on the bottom. I didn't actually have my ski outriggers that I use right now. Kind of using them as a pole plant and trying to figure out how to like turn, and I got hungry. Stop, pretty much. My right arm sometimes feels a little jelly. It's fairly difficult because I was mostly teaching myself and watching two-legged skiers do it. I excel as a skier primarily, I would say mostly on the downhill. I mean, I'm still fairly strong on the up, but I take my time. This winter, I skied off of Mount Moran and skied the Skillet, skied off of Denali as well, as one of the first disabled people to do so. So that was super cool, to be able to experience that with another disabled athlete.
Vasu is very much, he just like goes for it, and I love that about him. I feel like there's not a lot of hesitation there. You can tell by the way he skis that he really believes in himself.
I was really like stoked on his energy and just like how invested he is in the issues that he cares about. And it's so cool to see him bring that same like level of excitement and energy to his riding. He just like is full bore down the face of like any slope.
Yeah, buddy. To entice me. What do we do? We play the game. Like different rules. Maybe you should waste your life instead of mine, instead of mine, instead of mine. You wanna chew me up, but I'm never gonna lose the love.
I go by the motto of ninja sticking through the woods to bring intersectionality to the outdoors. So that was kind of the draw for me, is I was able to keep up with my friends and they were able to keep up with me, and we would have fun and, you know, normalize me having a disability or being a person of color in such a, you know, homogenous sport.
Change his character, but still be
Okay, we are going to switch to the new approach and just watch a couple minutes from that. Hold on 1 second here. Where did it go? Let's see. Blocked by. There we go. So you're getting, this is debuts online tomorrow.
There's Vasu. Vasu, place
soccer in Mexico.
Like 5 days before he's coming here.
Y cuidado porque nuevamente recuperaron. Cuidado, manda el servicio, Víctor. Contrario con Charlie, cuidado porque se viene el gol, disparo. Ay, ay, ay.
Can't nobody stop me, I'm on goal. Late night creeping, I'm running on no sleep. You stay better, I'm doing the most. Buckets getting bigger, it's the protein. Can't go broke. They try and match me, can't come close. Keep it down active, can't move slow. There's no plan B, can't do both. Can't do both.
Mom, I'm sorry, I just seen a ghost. Life getting scary, dead body in these clothes. Mountains in my nose, watching fountains overflow. Watch them staring funny at me walking down the road. Through the telescope, push a selling blow. Yeah, you never know. Head of wreck, got me heading home. Body cold, serotonin, 1,000 below, I'm on E. Flying in the wind, anytime it blows. G-climb, pair rocks and water like the seaside. We slide back, alley, broken bottle feet lines. Rewind, back inside, sorry, I can't see right. Street lights, hazy got me digging in my jeans like.
Can't nobody stop me, I'm on goal. Late night creeping, I'm running on no sleep. You stay better, I'm doing the most. Buckets getting bigger, it's the protein. Can't go both.
Tell us about it.
Active, can't move slow. There's no plan B, can't do both. Can't do.
How money weigh me down, anchor on my neck, no sense. Empty swimming pool, gliding through the stress, time spent. Dishing dirt, there's low regrets. Follow round on the ground, anywhere I went. Alive on the other side, grass is always bright. On the microwave, hot plate, dishing my demands. Come inside, tell you come inside, yeah we slide. On your mind, everything ain't right. No, rewind, I got
Oh yeah.
Nice job.
That section was nice and steep.
Try to get some sleep, try to sleep. K on me, got me stomach and disease, stomach bleeds.
Late night creeping, I'm running on no sleep. You stay better, I'm doing the most. Buckets getting bigger, it's the protein. Can't go both. They try and match me.
Vasu wave.
Cute.
We're with Emily in Brooklyn, sledding in a new zone for me, trying to find pillows.
And we're trying to find pillows and we haven't found them yet.
It's a very old strawberry.
Okay, we are back. Wow. I feel like I'm on a spine in Alaska trying to keep you in my sights. So let's start right where we stopped. You were telling me beforehand that that may be the first disabled descent of a big Alaskan spine. Talk about where you were and what it felt like.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a loaded phrase, I feel like. And yeah, thanks for having me, everyone. But yeah, we were in Haines, Alaska for that entire section of skiing. And it's comical more to say first disabled something or other, descent or ascent or whatever, because there's not that many folks doing some of this stuff. So kind of claiming it is kind of strange as well. But as I was saying, I don't know, I haven't gotten any kind of repercussion based off of it, so I'm going to keep saying it. Much of it is also based in uplifting the disabled community as well through those phrasings. So I intentionally call it first disabled descent, not first adaptive or first whatever else. So there's a reason why I call it that.
What did it feel like what was it like for you to descend, to be on such a big mountain, skiing it the way you ski it, you know, with outriggers and one ski?
Parts of it were scary. I was definitely bear hugging some like 50-degree spines that they didn't show in that to get to some of those sections, which is terrifying. That's why I was really in shock at the bottom when I came up and connected with the group. But besides that, I wish my leg was just a little bit stronger, even though it's fairly strong, but definitely have to stop mid-slope, which is always not the safest option. But if you let the slough, which is like all the loose snow, go by you and not get caught in it, then hopefully you don't get caught in it, then it's fairly safe. So yeah.
Well, talk about that, the stresses on, you know, when you're doing it on one leg. I mean, when you have two legs, you, in theory, the fatigue is distributed a little bit, but for you, talk about what that is like for you physically.
It's like doing a wall sit for like 10 minutes straight. How's that sound?
Yes, that sounds kind of excruciting.
Yeah, yes,
Way.
exactly. But I don't know. I mean, I've been on one leg for 31 years pretty much. So I think my body's fairly used to it, which is the nice part. Our body tends to compensate in various different ways, and we're all unique in that sense too. So that's the cool part. And I've been able to get some good support and good cross training and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's been super nice to be able to have that support to increase my ability in the mountains.
Well, I have to ask that because you just make it look so easy, and I know it's not.
No, there's a lot that goes behind skiing those spines. I mean, you know, a lot of what I've heard from a lot of other outrigger users, whether they're mono skiers or 3-trackers or 4-trackers, 3-trackers like myself, 1 ski and 2 outriggers, or 4-trackers, which is 2 skis and 2 outriggers, is the outriggers really tend to catch in snow. But luckily, I guess, to say the least, is that I taught myself how to ski. So I didn't actually go through the entire process of going through the whole PSIA adaptive ski programs when I was younger. So I learned how to utilize my outriggers in a very, very unorthodox manner compared to many other people. So yeah, there's definitely different techniques that I've been using that many people find shocking. And that's definitely helped me understand how to ski terrain like that, along with steeper and deeper terrain as well.
So let's go back to some of your roots in Vermont, at the University of Vermont, as a member of the outing club, and how you first kind of figured out backcountry skiing. And I guess I should start by asking, you know, adaptive downhill skiing is hard enough. Why do you do backcountry skiing? What drew you to this?
That is a great question. I kind of grew up skiing, half group skiing. I started when I was 10, as I was saying in the films. Went a lot. I mean, went periodically the first couple seasons and got my own equipment, and then started going with some friends that had cars up to Vermont, mostly Mount Snow and Okemo because they were just closer. And while I was living in Connecticut, that's where I primarily grew up. Me and a few friends would always go on short hikes and walk in the woods or go off the beaten path or anything like that, and just kind of wander around in the woods. And that was super fun. So once winter came around and I got to UVM, started doing the same thing, going skiing in the winters, hiking in the summers, and wanted to combine the two, and started trying to figure out how to do that. Made some prototypes on how to do that with my outriggers. They broke, they didn't work. I would be post-holing in deeper snow, whatever. And then while my time at UVM, I was with the outing club, as you were saying, and I took part in a backcountry avalanche and safety program. It was pretty much full season program, several weekends where a full crew, same crew of people would go out to different various zones and learn about backcountry skiing and avalanche terrain and all that kind of stuff. very impactful. And one day we were ski touring up, is it Little J?
Yeah.
Is that what it's called? Yeah. And
Big J and Little J.
Yep. And it had snowed like 2 feet or something the night before, so it was a powder day, and I had these outriggers and I only put skins on the bottom of them, and I was just post holing the entire time. So after that day I was exhausted and my arms were noodles, but we decided to go back to the drawing board at the outing club, and a few of us put our heads together to make what I have now, which I'm happy to share photos with you if you want and share my screen. Yeah,
Sure.
how it all started. Yeah, let me do that. So here's what I made. You can see this, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is what I made. That piece of plastic with the volet strap, and then I put it on the bottom of the outriggers, and then I make these Sasquatch-like prints in the snow, which everyone's very confused by. And yeah, that's kind of it. And this is what it looks like. Outriggers that are machined in Colorado by a company. When they're up like this, it's kind of called walk mode, and then when they're down in the ski, it's called ski mode. These are the plastic baskets I made for the bottom, same as these ones. And then I also made this whippet attachment, which is pretty much an ice axe attachment for self-arresting. I'm skiing really steep terrain and I need to stop myself from tumbling down the hill. So made all these little attachments to be able to ski all this terrain. Pretty cool. Mm-hmm.
And originally it was just you scrounged some MSR snowshoes from the outing club, as I recall.
Yeah, and I used those for pretty much like 7 years or something, and then I handed them off to another adaptive 3-tracker in Jackson Hole and took her out for the first time, and she was ecstatic and over the moon about being able to go ski touring. And yeah, that was really amazing to share as well, that experience with her. Mm-hmm.
So let's go from the wilds of Mad River Glen to the wilds of Alaska and talk about how the Denali expedition, how the idea of it even came around, and what made you think you could pull this off?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I kind of jump into the deep end all the time whenever I'm doing anything. I've realized might be a blessing in disguise or a red flag or whatever you want to call it. But I was skiing at Bridger Bowl here in Bozeman, Montana, and it was I want to say like snowed 3 feet overnight, and it was still snowing while we were there. And I was waiting in line because no one works on a powder day here, and really no one works on a powder day anywhere.
We should explain, you live in Bozeman now.
Correct. Bozeman, Montana. Yes. Yeah, I moved out there after I finished at UVM. And individual by the name of Jack Taylor came up to me and asked me if he wanted to come, or if I wanted to come ski Denali with him and his friends. And I was like, who's this like stranger asking me, like, whatever, I don't care. I just brushed it off and I just kept skiing with my friends that day. And then he reached out to me on Instagram and private messaged me, and persistent, and also added that there's another adaptive athlete that wants to do it. And so I was like, okay, cool. Like kind of, toyed with the idea. Wasn't like fully invested in just there. And we jumped on a call, the whole team, it was 6 of us. And we chatted a little bit. I think they still had a huge assumption about me because I'm fairly vocal about a lot of different hot button topics around race and disability and gender and all these things that many people might have an uncomfortable time talking about. So they definitely had a already preconceived notion of who I was. So they were definitely hesitant. So we tested out how we were gonna be as a team by climbing Tacoma, which is more commonly known as Rainier. in Washington. So we met up there. Didn't quite get to the summit because it was melting too fast. And so we skied the Finger, which was also a first disabled descent. Whatever, I don't know. I just keep claiming it all. But yeah, so, started building a dynamic there, and we were like, all right, cool. Like, seems like we get along, so might as well go to Denali and hang out for a month in a tent.
So what were some particular, at that point you had already done some of the big Mount Moran, you had done some big peaks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had, and I realized that Denali was more of a marathon than a sprint. Moran was a sprint, Rainier was a sprint. It's just you do it in 2 days or 3 days and you come down. Or Moran, some people do it in 1. Rainier, some people do it in 1. But Denali, there's only a handful that do it in 1, which is some of the more elite endurance athletes. But yeah, Denali was more of a 15 to 20 day excursion on the glacier. So definitely had that in mind of just moving slow and steady and making sure my body was being taken care of by myself and teammates and everything like that, including my shoulders and arms and skin and nutrition and all that kind of stuff, hydration. So
really also explain, so Pete McAfee is explain the difference in terms of the adaptive approach that you two have, but also when you're talking about 15 days crossing a glacier, this is not just skiing. You're schlepping.
So the thing about Denali is what I've heard from mountaineers going into it is it's one of the more difficult summits, 7 summits, which is the 7 tallest summits, 1 on each continent, because the climbers have to carry all of their gears and provision up with them. The food, your toilet, your tent, your sleeping bags, your gas, you name it, you have to bring it all. So the packs and sleds that you're dragging behind are incredibly heavy. So that was the
70 pounds in that neighborhood.
Mine was around 70 pounds that I was dragging, and then 30 pounds on my back, so a total of 100. Some of the other sleds on our team were pushing 200 because we had a full camera crew. Well, not full, kind of piecemeal camera crew, but we had solar panels and Goal Zero batteries and dome tent and just all the frigging electronics that have to go into filming and all that kind of stuff, which is so heavy. So on top of camping gear, so a lot of heavy schlepping up to, we didn't bring it all to the summit, that's not how that works, but
yeah,
a lot of carrying to base camp.
So you mentioned taking care of your shoulders, because while others can use their big juicy quad muscles to haul this stuff up, you are essentially pulling yourself up the mountain.
Correct. A lot of dips, if you know what dips are, but yes, a lot of dips up the mountain. I think I counted 1 million actually. So it was a lot of dips. Yeah, a lot of dips that entire month. And my biggest focus was getting to, so there's several different camps. You land at 7,000 feet. There's about a 6-mile section to the first camp, and that doesn't have too much elevation gain, but it's kind of rolly, still heinous. That's at around 8,000 feet with an immaculate view of Denali. And then the next camp is, we camped at about 9.5 just because it got really steep and our sleds are so heavy, and a storm had rolled in, so we camped there. And then we actually did some caching of gear, so a few of us went up, dropped gear off at 11,000 feet, which was the next camp, came back down, picked up more gear, and went back up. I was not part of that crew, not doing that. My arms would not be able to handle that, but realizing that. and the team was very much okay with that. But I passed off my sled at around 10.5 after like 10 miles and 4,000 feet. So I was cool with it. I didn't need to like prove myself to anyone in that sense. I just wanted to get to base camp at 14,000 feet with my arms fairly intact, because the next 6,000 feet were going to be the most difficult to the summit, which is 20,000 feet. So I was definitely keeping that in my mind as I was traveling on the lower glacier.
Talk about what you felt when you and Pete got to the summit.
I would say it's pretty visceral and very emotional. I think that was the first time I've seen 6 grown men cry at the same time, which was great. I think it's important to cry. But yeah, very emotional. There's a lot of weight on that trip for many of us to do so. I think, again, as a disabled person, there's a lot of weight on us to also be successful in these manners, because we're viewed as exceptional. And just, if we're not able to do it, then is it because of our disability, or is it because of our, the weather, or not, just something that like starts focusing away from just our character. So there was a lot of weight in that trip, and I think that was just a very cathartic feeling to be on that summit with that crew, and specifically with another disabled athlete as well.
You planted a pirate flag, or waved a pirate flag. What did that pirate flag symbolize?
Yeah, probably like not the most PC thing, but we didn't really care at the moment. I mean, Pete typically dresses as a pirate for Halloween, so with a peg leg and everything. So we were kind of the pirate crew in that sense. Just 2 disabled people on the same rope team, 2 people with amputations on the same rope team. So that was kind of the comedic relief, I think, hopefully, that people took away from that.
Well, what was the skiing like?
Oh, the skiing was atrocious. It was sunbaked and wind hit and pockets of powder and bulletproof ice. Luckily, I grew up skiing on the East Coast, so I've have experienced through all of that. But yeah, it was great to just be able to get down that mountain faster than going up it, let's just say.
Yeah. Huh. You ended up in a Warren Miller film, and these Stoke films don't, it's usually, for years it was exclusively white dudes. Then a few women got added in somewhere in the 90s, but they're pretty lily white. What did it mean to you to be in a Warren Miller film as a person with all that you are?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big step forward for the ski industry, but sadly to say, the bar is pretty much on the ground. The bar is pretty low at the moment, and I still want to see more and more diverse voices and diverse people, not just sharing our stories and personal stories and traumas and all that kind of stuff, but just skiing, just like what we were doing in the approach. Like, we are a crew, we're a diverse crew, and we just want to ski and have fun, just like the rest of humanity, and not needing to talk about where we come from or who we are and whatnot. We just get along and we want to support each other. And yeah, that's kind of the idea. And I'm hoping, the ski industry starts latching on and understanding why that's important. I think it's missing the mark a little bit on a huge audience that could really benefit from having access to snow sports and just having access to these powerful stories, and having access to seeing people that look like them, experiencing joy in the winter. I think it's a great way to connect to our landscape, especially when the days get shorter. So yeah, I hope it's just another way to expand that narrative and connect more people to the sports that we love. I don't know if that answered your question about Warren Miller specifically, but that was kind of the point.
But that's where I was going. I mean, the demographics of skiing are pretty shocking. 9 out of 10 participants are white. It's almost 2/3 male. What are some of the obstacles to participation for Black, Indigenous, and people of color, queer folks?
There's a lot of them. I don't know if there's like one main barrier, but some of them, of course, money. Skiing is an extremely expensive sport, sadly. I wish there were more rope tows and T-bars like the ones in Vermont. I think that broke down that access issue to finance. You know, ski areas like Cochrane has been amazing for that local community, for a lot of folks. I mean, maybe not like folks of color going there, particularly like specifically. I know I have seen that, but definitely just like, you know, lower income folks being able to access that. Doesn't matter if you're skiing in jeans or Carhartts or whatever. Montana's all about that too. So everyone's just out there trying to slide on snow. I think money is one of the biggest barriers. Another one is just a huge cultural barrier as well. The ski community, the way we talk, the way we dress, the food we serve at these places, the decor, the music, all of these things have a huge influence on who shows up in these spaces. Culture is incredibly difficult to break down, but there are various ways that we can incorporate different cultures into these spaces, which I truly believe is possible. You know, like, and again, like I go back to the approach, like our soundtrack was intentionally made. A lot of Indigenous, Black, women of color are the artists in that film. And we had so many compliments about wanting the soundtrack, you know, from a lot of folks of color, because that's who we were trying to get. That's the population we were trying to connect with through the film. So all those varying things have a huge impact on who shows up into space. And also one of the biggest things, those are more like, those can be checkbox items, money, food, music, all that stuff. The hardest thing I will tell anyone is building that relationship with the communities that you want to help and support. That takes years and decades to build those relationships, build that trust, especially if that trust has been broken through generations, through the atrocities that have happened in this country. I think there's a way of reconciling that if people are acknowledging that history and working through it together, and understanding how to reconcile it. So those are, I think, building that trust within those more, I like to say, historically excluded communities is, I think, the biggest hurdle for many predominantly white spaces to understand.
I'm going to just pause for a second to tell listeners to, we're kind of winding down our Q&A and want to turn to questions that you may have. So just put your questions in the little Q&A bubble that you see at the bottom of your screen.
I don't know, David, what'd you think about what I just said?
I'm coming back to it. I'm thinking about DEI is, everybody pays lip service to it, but few people are doing it successfully. Those statistics that I cited have not budged much, the 9 out of 10 white. I wonder why you think it is that with all the talk about diversity, equity, inclusion, progress is so slow in the outdoor world.
Fear, scared of losing privilege. I think that's the biggest thing. But I think the hardest part for folks that have privilege, that I include myself in that. I feel very privileged to be born in the US, even going through trauma like losing my leg. Like if I was in another country losing one leg, like I would be ostracized from the community. Like I know that I've traveled the world and I see that disabled folks are pushed aside and are told they're not human, all that kind of stuff. So being born in the States as a disabled person, huge privilege. I have lighter skin as well. I don't get impacted by many effects of colorism that impact a lot of darker folks in this world. And just being, just understanding and breaking down my privilege has helped me share that with so many other people that might not be in this room at this moment with me and you, or any other table, any other board meeting, committee meeting that I try to do with big brands, always trying to bring them their stories to the table as well through consent, always asking, people if I can share their, maybe not their personal stories, but just systemic issues that have impacted them, whether it's through the outdoors or through the healthcare system or education system or whatever you name it. So yeah, I think understanding and breaking down privilege and being able to share that and not being fearful of getting it right the first time. I still mess up on a daily basis. I put my foot in my mouth all the time, every single time. And I don't mind it anymore because I've built that muscle of understanding accountability and being able to say sorry when I, have made a mistake, and learning from it and moving forward together. And I think that's the biggest thing, is just trying to figure that out.
Talk about what you're trying to do with the Inclusive Outdoor Project, and also just the feedback you get from participants in it, and what difference it makes to them.
Yeah, so our idea is, I actually changed the motto recently. I need to do that on all of my marketing. Whoops. But our motto is, this space was made with you in mind, for mountain athletes, from people of color to disabled athletes to the queer community. So we are very much trying to make intentional spaces for, again, those historically excluded communities that me and my co-founder, Sophia, are a part of. And just trying to build these spaces, not the way that white folks do it, changing it up with the music and the food and the connections and the relationships and the conversations and all of these things, just breaking down those cultural barriers that I was talking to about you earlier, and just making these spaces welcoming for folks to speak their mind, speak their truth, and if they do mess up, having conversations about why they messed up and holding folks accountable, but in a very compassionate and caring way. And at the end of the day, like, we all love ice climbing, or we all love skiing, but primarily I just like doing it with friends. I don't have a favorite place I go or, whatnot. I just like being out there with people and community and my close relationships. And that's kind of the idea behind Inclusive Outdoors. The sports is just a conduit to build relationships and heal our communities more so, based on the generations of trauma that many of us have gone through.
Is there one interaction that kind of stands out in your mind that's sort of emblematic of why you do this?
Yeah, I mean, we just got a message this week because I opened up ice climbing clinics for middle of December for us here in Bozeman, and we just got a message from an individual that took part last year, yes. And she was saying that she's has autism, she's a queer woman of color, and she just said she felt the most welcome in that space that she has ever felt compared to any other climbing space. So I think that intersectionality of her having a disability, her being queer, and her being a woman of color, all of these systemic issues can impact an individual that identifies as such. So yeah, just hearing that from her definitely was very impactful in the work we're doing, making these spaces, again, very intentional, and making them, again, the spaces that the individuals that are taking part in want to be a part of and want to grow. So yeah, that was, I think that was very heartwarming and validating.
So you are somebody who is inspiring a lot of people with the trailblazing that you're doing. Who inspires you?
Typical cliche answer, my parents, definitely. They have the also typical, immigrant story of coming to the States and barely surviving and making it. And now, you know, we are way beyond survival and we're doing really well for ourselves. So really look up to them in their hardship and their grit and character and the energy they share with me, sometimes incredibly direct than many other people I hang out with, but very much necessary in my own personal growth. Yeah, exactly. That's just who they are. They're Indian. If you ever have hung out with an Indian family, they're very direct, very great, incredibly compassionate. So that's been super helpful. My older brother is also an amazing support system. Should probably call all of them more often than I do. I always tell myself to call them, then I always forget. And then I don't actually look up to too many outdoor athletes. I mean, Ingrid has been such a great ally in this space for us, for myself, Brooklyn, Emily, and other young athletes that are on this on the approach. A lot of them, again, women of color. So she's been amazing. Conrad Anker, who pulled me onto the North Face team, has been super amazing as well. And he is incredibly supportive, not just to me, but so many other athletes in the world in this space. So that's been really cool. And then a lot of the times I mostly read about the social justice movements that have changed the world, from, you know, the revolutionaries, the abolitionists, modern day abolitionists, disability justice folks that were able to create the ADA, all these people that were able to create social change at the systemic level is who I read about and look up to heavily.
So you think Frederick Douglass would have been a snowboarder or a skier?
I think he'd be a snowboarder. Skiing is not. Skiing is definitely is slightly uptight. I mean, I wish I was a snowboarder, but I kind of say I am because I have a single plank, but I'm a skateboarder at heart too, so I always wanted to try snowboarding, but I never could have figured out how to. So
all right, well, I think Frederick Douglass is going to be our segue to take some audience questions here. We'll take it from the top. Lynn Goldsmith asks, will the film The Approach be available for streaming? And if so, when and where?
Yeah, so it's actually coming out tomorrow, Friday, right? Today's Thursday, Friday. And that is coming out on the North Face YouTube channel. That'll be also, if folks are on Instagram, we'll be blasting it on that as well. So yeah, look out for it, any of those spaces.
Okay. And then we have, what is your next adventure, Vasu?
That's a great question. Going to Boston tomorrow, but let's see, ice climbing this December, and I don't have too many trips lined up, which is great. I just want to ski Bridger again. I think I had a total of less than 20 days at Bridger last year, which was kind of sad. So I really want to just connect at Bridger again. I'm going to Japan, but slightly for work. So that'll be kind of fun, not fun kind of balance, but that'll be sweet as well. And then my bigger goal, hopefully, as it gets funded, and we were talking about this earlier, is to ski off of Mont Blanc. I have this ridiculous, ambitious goal, probably a 10-year goal of mine, if my arms can handle it, is to ski off all 7 skiable summits. And again, probably be the first person to do that with one leg. So I don't know, or a disability. So we'll see if that happens. Wow. I'll keep pushing for it. So wow. Mont Blanc is on the list. It's just a kind of a prolific one. Everyone knows it. It's technically not a 7 summit. Some people contest it. Some people do. It's a very iconic summit in the ski mountaineering community. So I want to do it for that reason. Plus, Chamonix seems really cool. So that'd be cool to go to.
Yeah. Wow. Well, we have a comment here. Thank you, Vasu, for sharing your experiences and thoughts with this audience. The issues you're talking about are easy to put out of mind in our white skiing and riding communities. Keep up the important work.
Sweet. Thanks, anonymous attendee.
Then we have Paul Marcolini. Hi, Paul. Paul was an old Outward Bound instructor buddy of mine when I was doing that. And he writes, great discussion. Thank you. Which couloir did you ski from the summit?
Zooming off of Denali, we weren't able to ski any of the couloirs because they were all bulletproof. They had literally 3 inches of bulletproof blue ice just caked on the entire mountain. It was really terrifying actually to try to ski anything. So we skied down the same way we went up, which was pretty much the Audubon route to the West Buttress, to down that West Buttress fixed rope line. That was probably the sketchiest downhill skiing I have ever done in my life because there was about 2 inches of neve, if you know what neve is.
Styrofoam snow.
Yep, it's like, yeah, snow that feels like styrofoam that was falling off of that 3 inches of bulletproof ice. And I still think for me, skiing down is easier than trying to hike or walk down that with a crampon in my outriggers. So I decided to ski it, and that was terrifying. I have some GoPro footage of it, and I really want to look through it, but I don't think it'll do it justice at all.
Well, and of course, the first guy down it has a little bit of snow to ski on, but you take that all with you. So Pete or whoever followed you.
No one else decided to ski down because it was so sketchy. I was the only one.
And you stayed upright?
Well, occasionally. I was also ski belayed, so that was important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, I do have an edge, but it's like fractions of a millimeter.
My palms are sweating just picturing this.
Yeah, that was really sketchy.
All right, so our next comment is, so impressed. I hope more disabled people are inspired by you, your skiing, and the work you're doing.
Great. It seems like there are. I think I've just developed a brand new sport called adaptive backcountry ski mountaineering. So
I have not heard of it until you. And I first heard of it from the little film that was made when you were back at UVM called Out on a Limb.
Yep.
And I was so excited when I went to watch it again recently. I even saw, I was in the credits because I probably donated a little something just because I had heard about you. And, but there was a lot of people I knew there. You had really kind of, crowdfunded, or they had this, but a lot of us had been hearing about you. And anyway,
totally.
So Out on a Limb is still something people can see.
Oh my God,
online.
Definitely a
Early
foot in the
days.
door, for sure.
And the last comment we have is, well, we have, how many days a year do you ski, and how many are you stuck at your desk?
I'm not stuck at my desk at all, ever. I just decide to sit and answer emails whenever I feel like it, which is ridiculous to say. I could literally not work a single day of my life anymore and just go skiing every day, which is amazing. But I also have I got lucky enough that I have a manager who pesters me to answer certain things, so I definitely have to. I try to ski like 150 days, but I get pulled into a lot of different gigs and a lot of different speaking engagements and events and things like that around the country and world. So that kind of starts, pulling into those days as well.
We have somebody saying, tell us about Out on a Limb.
Oh, yes. That was my first little piece. I think it was only like 7 minutes long. What do you think, David?
It was short and sweet.
Yeah. And it was just me telling people how I ski in the backcountry with one leg and a little bit of my story, and me skiing some decently steep lines in on the East Coast, from Tuckerman to the Green Mountains to going up to the Chick-Chalk. So a nice little highlight of the East Coast. Missed out on the Adirondacks, but maybe next time.
All right, well, I think that does it. That's thank you so much for venturing back east to join us tonight, Vasu.
Yeah, definitely. I got one more. What's your favorite Vermont ski area? I don't know. I mean, I cut my teeth at Mad River Glen. I'll give my heart out to Mad River Glen always and forever. I do love the Mad River Valley. I worked at Sugarbush as an intern for Vermont Adaptive at Mount Ellen, so I also love Mount Ellen. And they just Vermont Adaptive just made a huge building renovation there. So that's super cool. If you guys get a chance to check it out, please go check it out. Yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Well, thank you again, Vasu. So appreciate you sharing your story, your joy, your struggle, and everything in between, and your powder turns with us.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, back to you, Abby.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. That was wonderful and inspiring. And thank you to everyone in the audience for joining us tonight. Please don't forget to make a donation. Supporting your favorite nonprofit just feels good. And it could also win you a pair of darn tough socks. At the museum, we are very hard at work getting ready to reopen for the season. So on November 25th, we'll reopen with a fully stocked shop and a new exhibit. The next exhibit will be a solo show of Scott Lenhart's work. Scott is a Vermont artist and has done over 55 graphics for Burton. We hope you'll visit us when we open and do some holiday shopping, check out the exhibit. We'll also have an exhibit opening party on Friday, December 2nd. For more information on that and to RSVP, head over to our website. We will also be at the World Cup in Killington next weekend. So if you're there, please come say hi, check out our tent, enter our raffle for a pair of Elon ripsticks. And even if you can't be at the World Cup, you can still enter that raffle. Just go on our website under support. You will find the page for that raffle. And the next Red Bench will be December 1st with author Skylar Bailey, who in his latest book brings to life the human experience of the 10th Mountain Division during World War II. And that is all I have for you tonight. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening.
See ya.